to Marriage Monday. You're going to be seeing me in this outfit a lot because I've just been on a filming spree, but I returned from a marriage seminar just last weekend, and I wanted to share some notes with you and just things that kind of tugged at my heartstrings. You know, you go to these seminars and you hear so much good stuff and you're like, yeah, and I saw other people taking notes, but I'm not really a note taker. Maybe I need to be better at that. But there were a few things that stood out to me and spoke to me because these are things I wanted to hear, and these are things that I want to share with you because they were like really good points. So every year or a couple years, I know I went to one a few years ago with my husband. They bring down usually an elderly couple to talk with us. They're speakers, authors that have books on relationships and stuff. And they come out and share with us. They talk about like communication skills, just like the difference between men and women, and just the spiritual aspect of why it's important to forgive and to love and all of that in marriage. But here's the main thing that stood out to me. So in terms of communication, he was talking a lot about women in particular being hint droppers, and that so many times if we were to just say exactly what we want, we could solve so many problems in our marriages. So women and most people, you know, we're kind of famous for being hint droppers. Are you a hint dropper? Where rather than just saying, honey, take out the garbage, you kind of walk by and you're like, ooh, that garbage smells. Garbage is sure full. And you drop all these hints rather than saying, honey, can you take out the garbage? And a lot of times, maybe you've done that because you've already asked him, and so now you're just hint dropping. But he just suggests that you could say, honey, in just like 10 minutes, if you can just give them a time, because usually if you just like say something to a man, it kind of like catches them. But if you could say, hey, in like 10 minutes, do you think you can go and take out the garbage? And you just tell them what you want, that, you know, it will solve so many problems. Another example they gave was of a woman that she was really thirsty, and she was like, oh honey, I'm thirsty, do you want to stop and get something to she just was like, I'm thirsty. And he's just driving along, they're in the car, so a 7-Eleven is approaching, and she's like looking at the 7-Eleven, looking at him, 7-Eleven, him, and she's like coughing, and he just speeds on home. And as they pass the 7-Eleven, she's like, I told you I was thirsty. Why did you just pass at 7-Eleven? He goes, because I'm rushing to get home because you said you were thirsty. So there's a perfect example of how we think that people are kind of like processing thoughts the same way we are. So it's so important to be clear on what we really want. And I think we've all kind of been famous for hint dropping, but I've definitely realized in my marriage that it doesn't get you anywhere. And if anything, it can kind of get your feelings hurt because you're hint dropping, it's not happening, and then it's kind of that thing like, what's wrong? Nothing. When really something is wrong, but you're just kind of pouting, slamming things rather than just saying what's wrong with you. So that was one cool thing that I took away from it. And then the best one, this is the one I really wanted to share with you guys. He talked about so he was saying, okay, so what about you people that are good at communicating and you have told your husband like what's important to you and what you really want? Oh my gosh, I look really yellow orange in this. It's because the sun is setting. So what about if you have told your husband exactly what you want? Well, he brought his wife up and he's like, honey, so me personally, I like to be greeted with a hug and a kiss. But even after 51 years, I get home, no hug and a kiss. So he's like, honey, you know, how come after 51 years, you know, what happens? How come you don't remember that? And she just gets up on the podium and she's like, I forget. So one thing he shared was that sometimes our spouses, they just forget. They're not processing thoughts the same way that we are. That we are thinking like, I have told him 1,000,000 times that this is important to me. And so sometimes, like for example, one for me is I've asked my husband, after our prayers, after we say our prayers, turn over and give me a kiss. I just want a kiss right before you go to bed. Like that's something that I want. So many times I've sat there in bed and we've said amen to our prayers, and he just rolls right over and goes to bed. And I'm sitting there like, really? In my mind, I'm like, he knows this. He knows that after prayer is kiss. And he clearly doesn't because he flipped right over and went to bed, you guys. So I'm sitting there kind of like hinting, rubbing on him. Nope, he doesn't get the hints. And so finally, I'm like, honey, will you give me a kiss? I need my kiss goodnight. He'll turn over, give me my kiss, and go back. And that was exactly what he shared with us, that it's okay to remind our spouses what's important to us, because we can't expect, he was saying it's crazy to think that people process thoughts the same way you do and that they remember things the same way you do. So it was kind of like, great, for the rest of my life I got to remind my husband these things. But here's the thing that he said that was my takeaway, you guys. He said, brothers and sisters, please do not go your whole marriage thinking that your spouse doesn't love you simply because they forget to do the things that are important to you. And that stood out to me, because how many times, you guys, as women especially, we're like, oh, he knows that I like this. And we sit there just feeling like your marriage is failing, that he doesn't love you and all this stuff. When he does, he's just not processing thoughts the way you do. And like in my example, I know I have a wonderful husband who loves me and does everything for our family, but he forgets to kiss me at night after prayer. Does that mean he doesn't love me? Does that mean our marriage is on the rocks? Absolutely not. But if I sat there and thought about it enough and let it fester inside of me and woke up every morning kind of like hinting and making him feel bad for not doing the things that I wanted him to do, that I didn't communicate to him, then eventually it could take a toll on your marriage. So that's just something that I really treasured and I appreciated, because I know, so many times it's easy to just, get caught up in feeling like, why do I always have to be the one to say, let's do this? Why do I always have to be the one to initiate? But he says, it's one thing if the person doesn't want to, they don't respond. So if you say like, honey, will you give me my kiss before bed? And they say no, then that's a different story. But if they are good, if they respond, if you tell them and they do it, then that's fine. It doesn't mean that they don't want to do it. They just need to be reminded. So that's my little Marriage Monday, guys. I hope you got something out of this, because I really did. So remember to communicate well, stop hint dropping, and it's okay to remind your husbands what's important to you. All right, guys. Maybe I'll keep this up, maybe I won't. The problem is why Marriage Monday didn't continue is because I just wasn't getting questions. I can invent topics if you want. So if you have any questions for Marriage Monday, if you want this to continue, leave it in the box below. And sorry, I look like a Oompa Loompa. The settings on this camera are awful, but this information is good. So I'll see you guys. It takes more than one to grow.